There's a very specific kind of void that the Batman Arkham series has left behind, and it's one that still lingers in the hearts of thousands of fans. Rocksteady's take on Batman didn't just deliver solid action-adventure mechanics, but really captured the feeling of being the Dark Knight. The weight of every punch, the rhythm of combat, the oppressive atmosphere of Gotham, and the psychological depth of its characters all came together to create something that felt special. It's rather obvious that every new project involving the Dark Knight has been measured against this benchmark, and very few games have even attempted to meet it head-on. That's why the idea that we may never get another Arkham-style game feels less like a gap and more like the end of a chapter. But here's the silver lining: just because that chapter may be closed doesn't mean the story itself is over. If anything, it opens the door for different interpretations, different tones, and different kinds of experiences. And that's exactly where LEGO Batman: Legacy of the Dark Knight comes in. On paper, it might not seem like the obvious successor to something as grounded and intense as Arkham. The LEGO aesthetic is quite far from that super gritty Arkham presentation, and it brings with it a lighter tone, a more playful presentation, and a design philosophy that prioritizes accessibility over complexity. But writing it off because of those differences would be missing the point entirely. In many ways, this could end up being one of the most refreshing takes on Batman that we've seen in years. Now, part of what makes this so exciting is the freedom that the LEGO format allows. Where Arkham was deeply rooted in a specific interpretation of Batman, one that's dark, gritty, and grounded, LEGO Batman has always thrived on flexibility. It can pull from decades of source material without feeling constrained by any single version. That means Legacy of the Dark Knight has the potential to become something of a celebration, which is exactly what the trailers are suggesting. It looks like a game that embraces the full spectrum of what Batman has been over the years, right from the brooding detective to the more fantastical comic-inspired iterations, which is one of the biggest reasons that has me personally hyped for this release. Now, coming over to the gameplay itself, LEGO's take looks to be borrowing the right things from Rocksteady's titles. In Batman Arkham, the combat system was all about precision and flow, rewarding players for mastering combo timing and positioning. The Legacy of the Dark Knight takes that same feeling, but obviously makes it more approachable in certain ways. The moment-to-moment combat is simpler, less punishing, and infused with an element of humor, but that doesn't at all mean it lacks engagement or isn't fun to interact with. From what has been shown off so far, combat in LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight isn't just about mashing attacks until enemies disappear, but about using a wide range of tools and abilities in some creative ways. Batman's gadgetry seems to play a central role here, with different encounters encouraging players to mix things like batarangs, grapples, environmental interactions, and character-specific abilities, rather than just relying on one single approach. It's not trying to replicate Arkham's technical depth, but it is clearly aiming for a similar way of going about things, which also has me stoked to try it out. Now, that open-ended design philosophy extends beyond Batman himself. One of the defining traits of modern LEGO titles is their emphasis on character variety, and Legacy of the Dark Knight looks to be heavily leaning into that. Different characters bring different mechanics to the table, whether it's unique traversal options, puzzle-solving skills, or combat abilities that change how encounters play out. Switching between them wouldn't just add variety for the sake of it, but could also actively reshape how you approach different situations. A locked path might require a very specific gadget, a hidden collectible might need a particular movement ability, and combat scenarios can shift depending on who you choose to control. It creates a loop where experimentation is constantly encouraged. The open world structure is another area where the game looks poised to stand out. Recent LEGO releases have moved towards more seamless hub-like worlds rather than strict segmented levels, and Gotham City seems to be getting that same treatment here. Instead of feeling like a series of disconnected missions, the city acts as a central playground that ties everything together. Players can move between story missions, take on side activities, and explore the world without hard breaks, which helps the world, of course, feel more cohesive. It may not be built with the same density or realism as Arkham's Gotham, but we will take what we can get, of course. Traversal plays a huge role in selling the fantasy of being the Dark Knight in this city filled with an ever-growing gallery of supervillains. Batman's grappling hook, gliding mechanics, and vehicle segments all appear to be part of that core experience, allowing players to move through the city in ways that feel distinctly Batman, even within that LEGO framework. Rooftop traversal, quick dives into street-level encounters, and the ability to seamlessly transition between different movement styles gives the city a sense of verticality that's crucial for any Gotham-based game. It's not just about getting from point A to point B, but about expressing yourself through the mere act of traversal. Then of course there's the Batmobile, which seems to be making a meaningful return as more than just a set-piece tool. From the looks of it so far, the Batmobile might be a really important piece of the puzzle, and is integrated into both exploration and mission design. Whether it's chasing down enemies, accessing new areas, or just simply cruising through the streets of Gotham, the Batmobile adds another layer to how players interact with this world. It's another nod to that Arkham influence, but reinterpreted in a way that fits the more playful tone of this game. Side content is also shaping up to be a major pillar of the experience. Much like any other open world, LEGO's rendition of Gotham City will most likely be packed with activities that go beyond just the main story, from collectible hunts and character unlocks to smaller narrative threads that expand on the world. These optional elements are where LEGO games often shine through, turning exploration into a rewarding loop of discovery. Every hidden brick, every secret area, every unlockable character adds to that very sense of progression. All of these factors are quite compelling on their own, but what makes the proposition interesting is how it all ties back to that original Arkham legacy. While Legacy of the Dark Knight isn't trying to mirror Arkham's tone or complexity, it does seem to capture a similar spirit in a different way. The idea of inhabiting Gotham, or moving through its streets, of engaging with its characters and systems is still very much intact here. It's just being delivered through a lens that prioritizes accessibility and creativity over intensity, and that's not a bad thing in any way. And in a way, that focus on accessibility might actually make it easier to revisit. Arkham games were incredible to be sure, but they also demanded a certain level of focus and commitment from the player. LEGO Batman, by contrast, feels a lot more flexible. It's the kind of game you can jump into for a short session, or just lose yourself in for hours at a time, depending on what you're in the mood for. That adaptability not only opens this game up to a brand new audience, but also feels refreshing for gamers used to super serious games and stories that require all of your full attention. There's also something undeniably appealing about seeing Gotham reimagined in this very style. The darker edges are still there in spirit, but they're softened just enough to allow for a broader range of expression. Villains can be more exaggerated, scenarios can be more playful, and the world itself can feel a bit more alive in a different way. It's not about replacing the Arkham experience, no, but about offering an alternative that still respects what made those games special. And that's really where Legacy of the Dark Knight finds its biggest appeal. It doesn't try to compete with Arkham on its own terms, because it honestly doesn't need to. Instead, it builds on the idea of what a Batman game can be, expanding it into something that feels both familiar and new. By combining open-ended combat, a richly interactive Gotham, and the inherent charm of the LEGO format, it creates an experience that stands apart while still tapping into that same core appeal. For fans like me who have been waiting for something or anything that captures even a fraction of that Arkham magic, this could end up being exactly what they need. Not a replacement, not a successor, but a reinterpretation that keeps the spirit alive all in its own way. And if it manages to deliver on that promise, LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight might not just fill the void, it might actually remind players why they fell in love with Gotham in the very first place. So what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.